Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Welcome. Come on into the room and don't be shy as you join. Say hello down in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Masterpiece Lounge. Welcome, everyone. As always, I'm super excited to be here with another segment. I love, love, love bringing you really thought provoking, awesome topics for us to discuss here in the Masterpiece Lounge, where it's a safe place where we share nuggets, um, where we can inspire you and empower you to grow in your personal and professional life. So, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi. All right, we have Tennessee in the building. Hello, Kimberly. Hello. Welcome. Welcome, guys. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I am Chrisnatha Derosier. I'm a certified life coach, author, speaker, and I'm super excited to be back. As always, right here in the Masterpiece Lounge. I am currently in Houston, Texas, where it's nice and warm here, nice and hot. I'm sure most of us can say that across the country. So, welcome everyone and welcome again. If it's your first time, welcome. You're always welcome here in the Masterpiece Lounge. And if it's your second, third, fourth, fifth, or 100th time, welcome back. And thank you for hanging out with me today. So, today we're going to be discussing effective decision making. We're going to be talking about effective decision making. We're going to be talking about the importance of it, but also how to effectively make decisions. Now, some of you might be thinking, at this point, right, we all should know how to make decisions effectively. And the truth is, some of us don't. And there's always room, space for us to grow as individuals. And so I wanted to share some nuggets just to get our brains going and sharing some nuggets with you that maybe you can apply. And so that's what we're going to do today. All right. Even myself, I'm sure there's somewhere that I can improve in terms of the way that I make decisions. But I want to talk about the way that we make decisions. How do we approach challenges, and not just challenges, good and bad, but also how do we process things in our minds and make a decision on what to do next, right? And so let's talk about that, because believe it or not, a lot of people get uncomfortable with making decisions. They may even get really anxious and stressed out. And so we want to talk about that just a little bit. We want to talk about patterns and things of that sort as well. Hello, hello. We also have Brenda, who's hailing from South Carolina. So welcome, welcome, Brenda. Thank you for being here. And so, yes, and so we want to talk about that, touch on that a little bit, because as we're moving forward um, with the things that we are planning to do, and things that will come up for us in our personal and professional life, it's important that not only do we make decisions, but we effectively make decisions, that we make good decisions, that we do our best, that we weigh out all of our options, that we're not being extremely emotional and not thinking of all of the facts, right? We want to make sure there's a good balance of both your heartstrings, but also your mind. And sometimes you got to take your heart out of it, right? And so we're going to just touch on that a little bit today, all right? So let's just dive in. Let's just dive in as we go. All right. So effective decision making. I love this topic. All right, give me just a moment here. Right. All right, there we are. Effective decision making and why it's important. Why is it important? Like I stated before, we all have to make decisions, whether it is at work, whether it's at home, whether it's about a family member, or your own life, right? We just have to make decisions. So, what are some of the best ways to make those decisions? What are some things to consider when we're making those decisions? Maybe there's some things that we haven't considered ourselves. And so, how can we do this more? So let's first talk about what is the decision-making process. The decision-making process is a method of gathering information, asserting alternatives, and ultimately making a final choice. Have you guys ever met someone, or maybe you are someone who is indecisive? That drives me insane. But I know people like this who just cannot make a decision. They say yes, and then 5 minutes later, they switch their mind and say, well, I really meant no. And then as you start to now make decisions and things start to line up with the no, they say, well, on second thought, I think I'm going to switch now to a yes, right? And so I know a few people in my life that way, and it can cause some frustration. So yes, but making a final choice, that is the final part of decision making. So I want to encourage you guys to definitely make sure that you are being effective, that you are gathering the information, that you are weighing the alternatives, right? Because with every decision you make, there are things that follow that particular decision. So you want to make sure that you are weighing out your options and that you have the information you need to make a good decision, right? Awesome. Okay, so let's jump right back in. So, step one is to identify the decision that needs to be made. So, when a challenge arises, what is the decision that needs to be made? Do we need to downsize? Do we need to add to our team? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to change our method, right? Our process, does that need to shift and change? What is the decision that needs to be made? So it's very clear to, it's very important to be clear about that. There are times where challenges come up, right? Or an opportunity comes up for us to, it's an opportunity for growth, right? Because everything doesn't have to be a problem per se, it's just an opportunity. And so, how do we handle that? Do we get nervous? Do we say, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with this? Someone else take over. I just can't. Do we shy away from it? Or do we say, okay, well, what's the problem? This is the problem, and here is the solution. Or this is where we need to go. This is the end result. This is what we need. So, how do we make a decision to make sure that we get our final, our final point, right? And so, when identifying the decision that needs to be made, there's a couple questions that you can actually ask yourself that can help you with this. The first question is, what is the problem that needs to be solved? What is the problem? For instance, if we're planning an event and a very key person is running late, or they've had some traveling issues, they're delayed for quite some time, what is the problem that needs to be solved? We need to make sure that we still can have an event, that the show must go on, right? And so, what is the problem that needs to be solved? We need to make sure that there's no gaps in our program, in our agenda for this particular event, right? As an example. And so, what do we do now? We replace that person, or we push them back to the end in hopes that they come. But if they don't, we filled in the gap, right? So that's a decision, that's a problem that needs to be solved. For instance, let's see, the next question that you can ask yourself in identifying the decision that needs to be made is, what is the goal that you plan to achieve by implementing this decision? So what's the end goal? Okay, keep that in mind. What is the problem that needs to be solved, and what is the goal that you plan to achieve by implementing this decision? And number three, the third question I want you to ask yourself is, how will you measure success? Now, I know it gets really tricky with measuring success, right? Because how do you measure success? What will it take for you to know that this went well? Will it take for you to know that we made the right choice? That this worked out pretty good, right? Now, for an event, testimonials. Did your audience, did your guests enjoy themselves? If the overall purpose of the event was met, that's successful too, right? And so you want to be able to measure success, okay? And one way to do that is to be as specific as possible. If you're dealing with money, then you just need figures. I think just being able to measure is having a very solid objective. something that people can count, something that you can say, we've reached this goal. We wanted 20 guests here and we got 27. We superseded our success, right? We've met our goal and then some, right? For example. And so those are three questions that I want you to ask yourself when identifying the decision that needs to be made. All right, so let's move on. Number two, it's really important that we gather relevant information. When you need to make decisions, you need all of the info. You need the data. You need to know who, what, where, when, why, how, right? You need to know because that's going to help you make the right decision. So, gathering information related to the decision being made is an important step in making an informed decision. So, you don't want to just make a decision, you want to make an informed decision with information in mind, right? So, for instance, if we're talking about the workforce, okay, does your team have any historical data as it relates to this issue? So, there's an issue that comes up in the office. Is there information? Is there data that relates to this issue? Right? How can we compare? How can we see what's really going on? Has this happened before? Right? Has anybody attempted to solve this problem before? Is this a new problem or is this a reoccurring issue that we really got to look deeper into? Right? It's also important to look for information outside of that particular person or situation. That may also be a deciding factor as well. Number three, identify alternative solutions. I loved I was in school, I loved the problem solving questions. And I know that was some of the questions that a lot of my friends and peers always skipped because they were like a paragraph or too long. And you had to sit here and read a paragraph, figure it out. But I loved it because it made me think. It really made me think. And as a result, now in my life, I would say I'm a pretty good problem solver. And I say that because I try to think of different ways to get the same thing. There's always a couple different ways, right? And so it's important to identify alternative solutions. This step requires you to look for many different solutions for the problem at hand. Okay, so that is important to do as well. There's many ways to solve the same problem. So finding more than one possible alternative is important when it comes to decisions in your personal life as well as business decisions as well. Different different opinions too can also help you. So it doesn't just have to be you. You can also put your head together with someone else or some other amazing people to help you with some other alternatives. Because I think sometimes two heads or three heads or four are better than one. Okay, so that's something to consider as well. Step four is to weigh the evidence. I know we weigh heavily on how we feel. I'm guilty of that as well. But we want to make sure that we're also being clear about what's in front of us. This is when you take all of the different solutions, right, that you've come up with, and you analyze how would you address your initial problem. So it's really like, let's weigh the evidence. What's in front of us? What do we know to be true? What do I know to be true? So that's another question I want you to throw in there so you can ask yourself. I know what I'm feeling, right? And nothing wrong with that. Trust your gut, all of that. That's amazing. I do too. But in addition to that, weigh the evidence, weigh what's in front of you, okay? That is important as well. And in terms of business as well, there's a few ways that your team can analyze and weigh evidence as well. And there's something called a SWOT analysis that you can do. You can do a decision matrix, and you can just create a pros and cons list. Okay, so that's one way you can do that in the workplace. All right, so number five, step five is to choose among the alternatives. Now that you have all of these possibilities of how to solve your problem, which one are you going to choose? So the next step is to make your final decision. And this is where it gets a little tricky for some people because sometimes they don't want to pull the trigger, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have to make a decision. Yes, you do, right? So what are you going to do in this instance, right? And so choose among the alternatives. What is the best decision to make? I've laid it all out. I've created my pros and cons list. I've considered all the possibilities. I'm making sure that I can measure success, right? And so which alternative rather do I choose? Okay, so make that final decision. Consider all the information that you've collected and how this decision may affect each person involved. Okay, it may affect people good and badly, but you got to weigh it all out. Okay, so keep that in mind. Sometimes the right decision is not one of the alternatives. Sometimes the best decision could be something you haven't considered before. So you want to also keep that in mind. All right, so effective decision making involves creative problem solving and thinking outside of the box. Don't put yourself in a box. Don't put other people in a box. And definitely don't put God in a box. All right. So don't limit yourself. Don't limit your team. And do not limit God. All right. So moving on to step 6, take action. Now, you could pray, you could strategize, you can plan, you can research. But at some point, you're going to have to do something. All right. Step 6, take action. Do something. Once the final decision maker gives the green light, if that's you, someone else, whoever, right? It's time to put the solution into action. How will you know this will work? Until you do it. Go ahead, step out, be bold, and take action. That's what needs to happen. Take action. All right. And step 7, finally, our last step is to review your decision and its impact, both good and bad. Both good and bad. Once you've made a decision, you can monitor success metrics, right? You can monitor success metrics in business. You can do this in your personal life as well, because we will make sure that we can measure the success. Okay. So this is how you determine whether or not this solution meets your team's criteria of success, your family's criteria of success, your relationships criteria of success, and so on. Here are a few questions to consider when reviewing your decision. Number 1, did it solve the problem that you identified at the beginning? And did this decision impact you in a positive or negative way? So that's kind of how you start to weigh out, was this successful? How did we do with this decision that we made, right? And who benefited from this decision, and who were impacted maybe negatively by this decision, because not every decision is an easy one to make, but they need to be made. And so I hope that these steps really help you in making some decisions, but making them effectively making decisions. There's a few type of decision making models in terms of how some of us think and how we process when it's time to actually make decisions. Some of us can be rational. And at different times, you can be all of these things as well. Rational decision making, intuitive decision making, and even creative decision making. So there's a couple different ways that we can make decisions. It can be a nice gumbo of all of them. It can be one at different times, or it can be a nice mix. One and the other, maybe two of them and not the third. So there's different ways and different methods and models that are used even in the way that we process when issues arise and challenges arise. And so there's intuitive, creative, and rational. I can honestly say I've been all three of these things. I've used all of those models when making decisions, some all at the same time and sometimes one at a time. So that is honest, and that is something that I have experienced myself. Also, as we're talking about decision making, there's something I do want to bring up with you guys before we end today's segment is your patterns. I want to encourage you to recognize your patterns, because I'm sure patterns have something to do with how we make decisions as well. Do we shy away? Do we go straight to the issue and say, I'm going to face it and acknowledge it, right? Do we like to ignore our problems? Do we get anxious and say, I'm just going to quit, I'm not even going to try, right? And so what are our patterns? And I want to encourage you to begin to recognize your patterns, and if needed, learn how to change them. If needed, learn how to change them, right? Because we all have them. And so that is something I wanted to bring up and encourage you to do as well. So that's all I have for you today in our Masterpiece Lounge. And I hope today's segment was helpful and that you were able to pull away some things that can really be beneficial to you. I want to encourage you to share it with your network so that they can also grab some nuggets as well. Let's connect if we haven't already on social media on Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube, Chrisnatha TV. Go on over there as well. I'll be posting some new content on there really soon. And so I want to make sure you don't miss out on anything. So let's get connected if we already aren't connected. And also inviting you over to my online home, iaaminstitute.com, and sign up for our free mailing list and grab your free ebook as well. That is my gift to you. So make sure you head over and grab that gift as well. So guys, thank you for hanging out with me today. And remember to really start being mindful of the decisions that you're making and how you are making them, because we don't want to just make decisions. We want to make informed decisions, right? And we'll make sure there's a balance of how we process and make those decisions. All right. So I'm Chrisnatha Derosier. I will be here next week, same time, same place. And I'm signing off until next time. So thank you guys for watching and joining. And until then, be well. Take care.